Hey guys, and welcome to the Because Maybe podcast, the podcast that takes a look at all things 90s and answers some of the most important questions of the decade. Because maybe we all found Bugs Bunny attractive when he put on a dress and played Girl Bunny, right? Right? No? Just me and Garth? Oh. Wow, okay. I'm your host, John Connolly, and thank you for whoever you are, wherever you are, for taking the time out of your day to listen to this podcast. We have a good show for you this week, too. We review a pair of movies from the early 90s that were really hilarious, Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2. We have some 90s trivia to look back on, and we look at a weird product that they still make to this very, very day. So, thank you, everybody, for last week's episode. I really do appreciate everybody listening to it, and giving us some really good feedback. We had some, very, very interesting thoughts about the episode, and I want to give a heads up to Kat. She basically gave us some feedback that made me realize that I missed something out of last week's review. So thank you to Kat, who said that she was partial to Super Mario Bros. 3, and that's one of the reasons why it took her a while to get an SNES. And by the time she had an SNES, she'd graduated to fighting games, and I can completely understand that, going from Super Mario and Sonic to Street Fighter like that was, I think, one of my hallmarks as well. And Raccoon Mario brought her pure joy, and, that warms my heart. I loved Raccoon Mario too. But that made me realize that I'd left something out of last week's review. She said that she would play the game right now if she was able to. And I should have mentioned that both games are currently available on the Wii U store. If you own a Wii U, Super Mario Bros. 3 is for $5, and Super Mario World is for $8 in the American market. If you were in Europe, Australia, Japan, I don't know exactly what price it will be, but it'll be in around the 5 to 7 range for Super Mario 3, and the 7 to 10 range for Super Mario World. Now, you could do that, obviously, and that's what I want everybody to do. I don't want anybody to go and download an emulator and play it, even though sometimes it's very, very smooth to play and everything like that. You have to do these things legitimately, so don't get an emulator. Get it directly off the Wii U. Unless you already own the game, and then you can totally get it on an emulator. That's completely and utterly legal. But once again, thanks for Kat, and thanks for everybody who gave us feedback for last week's episode in terms of the content. I wanted to apologize, too, for last week's audio, and a little bit of this week's audio as well. This week, I sound a little bit different in terms of the recording. That's because I had one button on my mixing board pressed that I shouldn't have had. And this week, when me and Greg were recording, because it's going to be a conversation when we talk about Wayne's World today, when me and Greg were recording, I had my microphone turned up a little bit higher than what it should have been because I was looking at the wrong knob and the wrong level on the program I recorded in. Professional, guys. That's professional right there, is to know what you were doing. And I make money doing that too, which is weird, but I'm getting it right. I'm getting there. We are improving week to week. We had some feedback saying, that they could tell the difference between the first episode and the last episode. And again, constant growth and constant improvement is what I'm looking for. And that's what I'm looking for from you guys too. I appreciate everybody who is following us on social media. And guys, if you like the page, please send it to a friend, like and share. I have a drive where I want to get more and more people liking the page. I want us to get to 100 followers by the end of October, by the time Halloween comes around. And I want us to, have some followers on Twitter. I want us to have followers on Tumblr. All these links are in the description below. If you are a member of those sites and you haven't liked us on those pages, please do. It'll give us a nice little boost. And plus, you can share it to your friends, you can share it to their friends, and so on and so forth. We also have a YouTube channel that plays, if you haven't got time to listen to the whole podcast, we have snippet files on there. You can go back and listen to my tribute to Tom Petty. That was tacked onto the end of the podcast last week. If you want to hear it in its entirety, it is on our YouTube channel. Again, like and share us on there. We also have a blog. This week, we had a little bit of delay in posting the blog due to a family emergency, something that really couldn't be helped, but hopefully that should be up right now, and you should have received the links. The next couple of weeks, we are going to have an increased activity in social media, so our name is going to be up there a little bit more too. So we look forward to hearing all your feedback as well. That's what we want. I crave feedback. I want feedback. I want to know what I'm doing right, and I definitely want to know what I'm doing wrong. Case in point, the sound last week. Also, if you want to support the podcast too, I know for the last couple of weeks we've been advertising a gig for the Holodecks coming up on the 21st of October. If you guys have any work that you'd like to advertise, not a problem. I will be more than happy to promote you guys on the podcast. However, all I ask in return is that you give us a like and a share back. If you have your own podcast that you want to that you want to promote. I can gladly open up my audience to you on the condition that you open yours up to mine. That way, we kind of, scratch our back. Again, this is a small project. We don't have any money backing us. Everything is being done out of my own pocket, and I'm just looking forward to moving forward as much as I can and grow my audience. But if you feel that you need to expand and want to use this podcast as a way to expand your horizons, let me know. Send me an email, becausemaybe@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to accommodate you. Again, on the condition that you can accommodate me with a similar request. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, and so on and so forth. Also, for all you Google Play listeners out there, we've tried, and we still having issues with Google Play. In fact, to the point where I have to actually physically call Google. Yes, Google does have a helpline for this kind of thing. I'll be calling Google this next week, just trying to make sure that we haven't made any errors, uploading our stream to their podcast site, so that we can get on their platform and expand to the device that you listen to. In the meantime, if you have iTunes, we're on iTunes. Look for us, Because Maybe Podcast. And of course, you can use the Podbean app, which I 100% assure you, if you don't have and you decide to get it, you can log into it through your Facebook. So you don't have to create your own account, which is absolutely fantastic. So, and that's it, guys. We've got a lot to come. So without further ado, here's me and Gregory talking about Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2.
Review Corner, the big screen.
This week on Review Corner, we're going to be taking a look at a pair of movies that were absolutely fantastic, and I am joined, for the first time, by the Wayne to my Garth, the Mario to my Luigi, Mr. Gregory. Greg, how are you, man?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem, man. We really do appreciate having you on here. Everything that you've given to help us along the way has been absolutely fantastic, and I figured, what better way than talking about one of the greatest movies of the 90s?
Yeah, I mean, it really... It defined the culture of the 90s in a lot of ways.
And we're going to be talking about its sequel, which kind of didn't. Well, so...
I think there's some debate there, definitely.
It's a good movie, but I think... And we'll get to it here in a minute. It was just... comparable, I think it was...
It wasn't the first movie.
Yeah, exactly. And the first movie is what defined a lot of things. So the first movie, Wayne's World, was originally released in February of 1992 and did a box office of $183.1 million, which, according to my little calculator thing, was a profit of like $140 million. Actually, profit a lot more than that, actually. But it got a critical rating on the Jonometer of 80 out of 100. Now, if you don't know what the Jonometer is, it's the same formula that I used in the original episode to put the book movies together. So, using a combination of IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. But 80 out of 100, you agree with that, or?
Yeah, I'd say that's about right. I mean, I don't know. I would have gave it at least a solid A minus, but, I think that's fair. I mean, there's probably movies at the time that were better.
Yeah.
But it was definitely good in its own right.
I mean, we did have Silence of the Lambs and stuff like that, but again, we can't compare. That's one thing I've always had a problem with movie critics, is comparing certain movies to certain movies. I mean,
apples and oranges.
Exactly. I mean, This is rated on the same scale as The Godfather, and The Godfather's like 97%. So
yeah, and that's one of the greatest movies of all time.
Probably second to Pulp Fiction.
Or Casablanca.
Oh, Casablanca.
Casablanca holds up still
to this day. The background of the Wayne's World movie. A lot of people have a misconception that it was from Saturday Night Live. Now, the movie itself was from Saturday Night Live, but the character of Wayne actually came from a Canadian TV show called It's Only Rock and Roll. And when Mike Myers came to Saturday Night Live, he brought the character with him because he owned the rights. And it was weird. Mike Myers wasn't a star at that point when he joined the Saturday Night Live crew, but Dana Carvey was.
That's interesting to think about, because you think about the magnitude of Mike Myers' career post this movie, his film career.
Oh, anyway. Yeah. Up until The Love Guru. But so that's one of the things he didn't want. He didn't want a Garth in the original sketches, but Lorne Michaels insisted because Dana Carvey was the biggest star at the time. He was going through that period with the church lady and with the President Bush Senior impression that was getting. I always get them too confused. Bush the Elder.
HW, I think we call him that now. Yeah.
This is Mike Myers' debut, and when you think about how many movies he did, I'd say it's a pretty good debut.
Yeah, that's definitely a solid debut. I mean, he definitely had some acting chops.
And he proved that with Saw Married an Ex-Murderer. I thought that was a good film too.
Yeah, it was a good movie. I think it was a little underwhelming in the box office, but you know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the thing is, I think that was one of the first. I think that's the only movie that Mike Myers has done not in character. Even though he did play some of the characters in there, he was acting as Mike Myers as opposed to acting as Wayne.
That was his most Canadian film. He was definitely very Canadian in that film.
Oh my word! But then obviously there's Wayne World 2 as well. That had a different director, which we'll get into here in a little while. That was actually released only a year and a half later in 1993. But unlike Wayne's World, the original, it only got $48.2 million at the box office, which is still a decent for a movie. However, it was only $8 million of profit because they sunk a lot of money into that second one. You know, there's a lot of things of Mike Myers around in between the first and the second movie that he wanted certain demands, like the director had to change because they didn't get on, and they butted heads, completely all the time. I
think sometimes conflict, it can be difficult, but a lot of times that's how you create something beautiful, is because you have two ideas bouncing off of one another, and equals creativity in a lot of
sense. And when they didn't have that in the second movie, it could seem a little lackluster.
And that could have been why it was a lot less heralded than the original.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the director, I apologize if I get this wrong, Penelope Spheris, she didn't work on this. She said that it wasn't her decision and went to work on the Beverly Hillbillies, which, if you haven't seen, don't waste 2 hours of your life going to watch it. Although it's got Rob Schneider in it. And Rob Schneider in the early 90s was great.
It had some funny moments, like when he was trying to figure out how to use the bowling alley.
They were eating food off the pool table, using the rests and moving the food around. Chris Farley, who appeared in the first movie, was recast as one of their friends.
Yeah.
The original friend, I think it was Phil. He wasn't in the second movie, and they rewrote his character for Chris Farley.
Is it the guy that was partied out?
Yes.
You're gonna spew in this.
They originally wanted Rob Lowe to come back too in the second movie, which is weird because they want him to play a different character. I know, it's very, very weird. Interesting fact about the cast in Wayne's World 2 is you had Charlton Heston and Tia Korea, and they actually played, and I probably butchered that completely, but they actually starred in another movie that year, True Lies.
Oh, that was a good one.
And interestingly enough, they share a grand total of 0 seconds of screen time in both movies combined. What do you think was the main reason why a lot of people bought into, I say the plot, but a lot of people bought into the movie as a whole? Did they see themselves as just another bunch of people who are trying to do what they can, live out their dreams, or?
It was new, it was different, and I think that was the biggest thing. You had a lot of slang and a lot of pop and rock culture references. There was really good music in the first one, yes. Like the Bohemian Rhapsody scene in the car. Yeah, I remember that was one of my favorite parts of that entire movie. And I don't really think the second one was all that bad. It wasn't as good as the first one, and there's just something to be said about the first of something.
Yeah, I completely agree with how the first one is always the one that you harken back to. Was it because the second one didn't have as many moments? I mean, the first one was insanely quotable. Not. Couldn't resist. It's insanely quotable. It's got these scenes that people remember. It's got a really, really good cast, and it's shot well. Whereas the second one felt a little more
forced in a way.
Yeah. It was like, look, we're trying to be funny. No.
Yeah. No. Yeah. The first one definitely was a little more. The comedy was a little more organic, but I think what really drives the first one home is that it had a better plot.
Yes.
It was a much more relatable plot. It's like these two guys, and they're just doing what they do, and they get pulled into like a big high dollar production version of what they've been doing in their basement for years. You know, it's just it, and I think a lot of people can relate to that because we're all trying to quote unquote make it in some sense, whether it's professionally, like, you know, me as a musician, I absolutely understand that as well because there's millions of musicians that, you know, work 30, 40 extra hours a week trying to quote unquote make it, and you know, 99% of them never will. So
I think the TV show is, even though Mike Myers' dream was to host his own cable access show, which is a pretty weird dream when you think about it in this day and age.
Set the bar pretty low, yeah.
Set the bar pretty low. But could this be used as kind of allegorical to a musician's struggle?
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean,
they start it in their basement or garage, you know, depending.
Yeah, it's definitely metaphorical in that sense. I mean, and because you know, making it, as I say again, is a combination of both timing, skill, and luck. I mean, you have to be in the right place at the right time, but you also have to have the skills to be able to do what you do. So
yeah, people can recognize somebody who's not who's doing it for either the wrong reasons or, you know, who's not talented enough to do it. Interesting. Before we move forward and look at some of the more behind the scenes stuff, there was a couple of cast changes in between, and I found it weird that Lara Flynn Boyle's character was written out. The character of Phil was written out. And just a couple of these side characters who added flavor to the world were written out. Garth's Dream Woman was written out, and they replaced her with Kim Basinger's character, which, as far as subplots go in movies, it was over the top. I mean, as we spoke about earlier, in the first movie, everything that happened plot-wise was believable and relatable, whereas in the second one, it was more over the top and just seemed like they were trying too hard.
Yeah, I really liked the monologue, or the dialogue between Kim Basinger and Dana Carvey.
Yeah, those scenes as a whole, I like those scenes. I will say I like those scenes in terms of their pure comedy because of how awkward Garth is and how he didn't understand
Oblivious.
it. Yes.
Take me, Garth. Where? I'm low on gas and you need a jacket.
Exactly. And he just didn't get it. And that's why I said the Wayne to my Garth, because at the time, as years went on, I related to that part of the character so much more than what people realized. But they did have Christopher Walken in the second one, and I thought that was a great casting choice. Del Preston, what a character!
Yeah, Christopher Walken. You know, the one thing that bugged me about his character, though, there's a scene where Wayne and Garth show up to the recording studio, and Christopher Walken's character is, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Bobby.
Yes.
Yeah, Bobby Kane. I don't know. He's laying down a guitar track, and as a bassist, you know when someone's not actually playing the guitar.
Yes.
And it just bugged me because he had his guitar slung over one shoulder, like he was, like it was a backpack or something. I was like, he's not playing that. And it just kind of, you know, I know there's some suspension of disbelief there, that I was like, come on, guys, just drape it over your opposite shoulder, you know?
Yeah, the wife goes crazy when I point out on TV somebody's playing live, and I'm going, they're lip syncing. Oh, how do you know they're lip syncing? Just
you can tell.
I mean, that was the whole thing. I know I'm jumping forward a few years. Was it the Ashley Simpson thing on Saturday Night Live?
Oh man!
And then I watched old episodes of Saturday Night Live, and I'm going, this is just an overdub of the original track. Yeah, it just is what it is.
Smoke and mirrors, man. That's the entertainment industry.
That is it in a nutshell. Going behind the scenes of both movies real quick. Mike Myers, as I mentioned, was apparently very difficult to work with in both movies.
I find that very surprising.
And I do too. He always seems in interviews and everything, you know, amiable to work with.
Yeah, he seems likable and fun. You know, it didn't seem like he would flip out over something really small like he apparently did in the movie.
He flipped a table over because he didn't have margarine for his bagel. That is some next level diva right there.
Big time.
He didn't want to do the headbanging scene in Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, I actually heard something else about that. The take that's in the movie, if you pay close attention to Mike Myers, you can see him kind of like grimacing. He's like, and you know, I didn't think much of it because I thought, you know, he was just getting into the music, but It was actually because they made them do that take about 20 times.
Oh.
And they actually had to reshoot the take the next day.
Oh.
So all of their necks were really, really sore from doing that. So that face that you see him making is actually pain.
And see, when I first saw it, I thought that was the Wayne smile.
Oh, no.
Because it does look like the cheesy smile that he used to follow.
Yeah. Ear to ear. No, it was genuine pain.
He also argued with the director of the final cut of the movie, and it was that and the bagel issue and a couple of other things that led to, again, Penelope Spheris not working on the sequel. And apparently he hated the final cut of the movie. The original Wayne's World movie that we all know and love is disowned, for lack of a better term, by Mike Myers.
That makes you wonder why he signed up to do the second one.
I think because he had more creative control over the second one, especially since he handpicked the director for that one. And even though Wayne's World was written by a team, Wayne's World 2 was predominantly written by him, and his quote team backed him up and kind of tightened the script up, but didn't change anything, whereas it was a collaborative effort in the first one.
And I could understand why he would have issues with, or have like certain sentiments about the movie, because in essence, the whole thing was spawned from his character. So I could see that, him having creative differences in that way.
And I completely agree with that. People want to keep a hold of their babies as much as possible, especially in the creative world. Yeah. Alice Cooper, probably one of the probably the best cameo out of all the movies. The Alice Cooper cameo.
Oh yeah, he dropped some amazing knowledge on them. Milwaukee.
Yes, Milwaukee. He actually only when he was invited on and he accepted the role, he actually played a song, and it was going to be "School's Out," but they changed it to
the song where he talks about
not my Frankenstein.
Yeah, not wanting to eat pizza.
Yeah, and so right, so he only envisioned him coming on to sing "School's Out" and saying one line, and then they handed him a script on the day, and he actually dug that because Alice Cooper apparently is a big history buff, especially in the history of Illinois and Wisconsin and that whole area.
Yeah, shock rockers are actually some of the more intelligent people. Marilyn Manson, for instance, is incredibly intelligent.
The one of the most famous scenes in the movie is they're on the hood of the car waiting for the airplanes to fly over, and they're just talking about life and love. And Dana Carvey mutters the Bugs Bunny line, which is the whole, "Hey, did you ever think it was hot when Bugs Bunny dressed up like a woman?" And that laugh and that awkward silence and everything that followed that was actually genuine. That was completely ad-libbed, and Mike Myers loved that so much that he insisted that they keep that in the movie. But the movie was also the first recognized uttering of one of the most famous jokes, childish jokes, that is now in the history of the world, which is sadly said more often than not around myself. It was used on Saturday Night Live a lot, but Wayne's World was the first instance of "That's What She Said" in the very, very, was it the opening scene?
I know it was early on in the movie.
And they're holding up the picture of, see, my brain escaped me again. I think they were holding up Kim Basinger's picture and doing the whole,
or Heather Locklear.
Heather Locklear.
Yeah.
Can we hurry up? I'm tired of holding this thing. And then the words were added. It had been used before, but it was more subtle, as subtle as you can be with that. I guess making sexual innuendo back in the day was just hard.
That's what she said. Oh yeah, and props to Steve Carell for eloquently revitalizing that phrase.
Yes, it is.
He owns that phrase now.
He does own that phrase now. He has to. The drum solo, Dana Carvey. I did not realize that Dana Carvey was that good of a drummer.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, Dana Carvey is also an accomplished pianist. Really? He is a multi-instrumentalist. He's a great singer. Yeah, if you haven't ever heard it, go on YouTube and check out this video by him. It's called Choppin' Broccoli.
Okay.
It's him playing. It's basically part of a comedy routine. He's talking about how it sounds like people just make up song lyrics in the spot. And he's talking about this lady who went and bought some broccoli and she's chopping it up. And yeah, check it out. It's really, really good.
Also another musical thing, Tia Carrere. Again, I apologize if I've butchered that, if I get it wrong.
Tia Carrere.
She sang all her lyrics.
Yeah, definitely. You could definitely hear it was her.
And I didn't. That's a phenomenal, powerful voice. She should have had a career in music as well as movies.
She probably could have.
Rob Lowe, after the sex tape scandal, saw a career upturn because he apparently realized he was funny. And there's also one joke directed at Bill Murray in this movie too. His brother Brian Doyle Murray is the head of the arcade, Noah's Arcade, and when he flashes the sign that says "This man has no," it's a reference to the Ghostbusters joke. Mr. Peck, I think his name was.
Can't recall.
Was when the Ghostbusters are in the mayor's office and they're ranting and they're giving their reason why they need this, and then they say "This man has no." That was the reference to the joke. It was a callback.
Nice.
To them. Wayne's World 2 did have some interesting things behind the scenes as well. They referenced a lot of urban legend in one of the most famous scenes. The Ozzy Osbourne story.
So were they in the sweet shop?
Yes, they were there in the sweet shop. The whole brandy glass full of M&Ms actually came from Van Halen. They had a very, very specific rider, and one of the things they used to do was put innocuous things in their rider so that the stagehands would know. They know the stagehands had read the rider.
Right, they wanted to make sure that they were actually reading it. Yeah.
And one of them was remove all brown M&Ms from the M&M bowl. It seemed innocuous, it seemed stupid, and it seemed diva-ish, but it was just their way of saying that everything else was red. If you did that, they knew you read everything
If they walked in and saw brown M&Ms in the bowl, then they knew that something else was going to be wrong. Exactly,
and that actually did happen. A staging collapsed during one of their gigs. Ooh. And they caused 80 grand's worth of damage to the dressing room afterwards.
Jeez.
That to me is one of my favorite scenes. Originally, and this might pique your interest since you are a big fan, Nirvana were approached to perform at the Wingstop portion of the film. They saw the script and they politely turned it down, which, looking back, I mean...
That would have been so cool.
You had all these... Aerosmith were an 80s band at the time.
Yeah, they really... They've been around since the early 70s.
It just seemed like they needed a fresh injection of blood. They had Aerosmith, they had Alice Cooper.
Yeah, while they were still relevant at the time, I could 100% agree with that. It would have given them, it would have been more fitting to the era. Definitely.
Also, Wayne and Garth's TV crew, they are not mentioned by name in this movie. That's... You know what? If you were a stagehand, stage crew, you can relate to that. The stars of the show get all the glory, and the guys who do as much hard work don't get it. What's even weirder is the fact that you had Terry, who was, I think, the cameraman, and Neil was the sound guy. His name isn't mentioned in either movie. Even though he's in the Bohemian Rhapsody scene, he's you don't hear. The Jim Morrison scenes were inspired by Mike Myers' own spiritual journey. I think part of the problems of why he was difficult to work with in the first one was his father was sick, and after he passed, it was just something that he had to do. Mike Myers, and this is where Mike Myers and Dana Carvey started to, I say, fall out, but it's never been confirmed, and they've always denied it. But that's where they started having that whatever issues that they rumored to have came from Wayne's World 2. Dana Carvey was upset that Mike Myers was all over the production. He had his fingerprints everywhere. And as we just said, yes, it was his baby. It was his way of doing things and his character. But I think the reason why the Kim Basinger storyline subplot was added was because Dana Carvey was upset that Garth had very, very few scenes in this movie originally. I mean, as much as we know Wayne and Wayne and Garth, just the idea that Garth is cut out of at least 3/4 of the movie is, you couldn't have one without the other.
Yeah, there's definitely like a Beavis and Butthead sort of thing going on there, because, Beavis kind of just co-signed onto what Butthead was doing, and you kind of get that dynamic from Wayne's World, that Garth is just kind of the tag-along co-signer, that he's just kind of there to prop Wayne up a little bit.
Yeah.
And, Carvey, as successful as he was before going in, arguably much more successful than Myers, I could see why that could cause issues.
And not only that, I mean, it was, you saw it in the first movie when, spoiler alert, it's a 25-year-old movie, when Wayne gets fired from his TV show and Garth has to host the second half by himself, and he's not comfortable, he doesn't want to do it.
I'm having a good time. Not.
But what led to the falling out was Mike Myers didn't want to work on a third Wayne's World, and to be fair, I think that was a good idea. But he was starting to have his spy movie in his head, which became Austin Powers, and apparently Dr. Evil is based off of an impression that Dana Carvey did on Lorne Michaels. Now, I'd never heard Lorne Michaels speak until that clip went around online of the 2.5 Men finale, and I can understand why he'd get upset, because, I mean, it's, I don't want to say artistic infringement, but, I mean, it's no different than a guitarist stealing a riff from another guitarist and claiming it his own.
Yeah.
There was a couple of scenes that made it to Austin Powers. There was the falling down scene when he was falling on top of Cassandra. I'm not going to say the name again because I'm going to get it wrong.
Oh yeah.
So the second one had its problems. The first one wasn't fun. The second one had its problems with production. But I mean, it was a decent movie.
It had its moments.
Yeah, it did have its moments. So what do you think are some of the most famous scenes and quotes from the original? But what are the best parts of the original?
That's a tough one. When it came out, I was a fan of the Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, I definitely thought that was hilarious. But also I was 9 when that came out, so I was laughing at all kinds of funny stuff, childish stuff, I guess.
I mean, the Bohemian Rhapsody thing, everyone knows. I think that one's been done to death in terms of everyone's favorite, and it's a classic movie scene, and it's a funny movie scene too. I think that was what I think we all have a song that we do that to in the car. It might not be Bohemian Rhapsody, but there's a song that comes on the radio and it's like, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's one of those, if it comes on and you're ending like if you're driving to the store and Bohemian Rhapsody comes on, like you have to sit in the car and finish it before you get out of the car. At least that's how I was raised.
Right.
But something else funny about that, if you watch that scene with the part where they show them like singing along to it, Mike Myers sings "Nothing Really Matters," and they pan to Garth, and when he sings "Anyone Can See," he's just actually just moving his mouth in some weird way, like he's not singing, he's just like there's all sorts of little things like that in the movie if you watch carefully.
Is that a bad take, or is that he didn't know the words? I mean,
I honestly don't know.
Because Bohemian Rhapsody was a big song in the UK, and it was a big song in the US too.
And it'd been out 20 years.
But it wasn't to the level. I think this movie elevated that song from a great song into a god song.
I do believe that it charted again.
Yeah.
After Wayne's World was released,
which is weird because it didn't even reach out after Freddie died.
Yeah.
So what about Extreme Close Up?
What? Yeah, that was really funny. Yeah, the "We're Not Worthy."
Oh yeah,
with Cooper. I think that one was. I've done that a few times. So I absolutely understand that.
I've done that too, but I've had a couple of cocktails on me at the time.
Yeah, probably so.
How many music shops have you walked into that has a sign saying "No Wonderwall"?
None, but it's kind of an unspoken thing, like Sweet Home Alabama,
yeah,
Freebird, Stairway to Heaven. That's just, you just
don't play those at a music store.
You really don't. I mean, there's a million other things you can do.
That's the equivalent of walking up to a car model and win this car here, and then asking the model, "Do you come with the car?"
Right.
They've heard it all before. It's like,
you're like,
They did the Terminator parody, which I think was the only thing that was out of place in the whole movie was the Terminator parody. But it was still funny. Because they actually got Robert Patrick in. That
was rather subtle though, because I honestly didn't even notice it until but yeah, definitely it's definitely there.
What about did you ever play street hockey?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Car. And then
Game on.
And then Stacy crashes and burns. I'm okay. The donut. I love the donut shop scenes.
Like when Garth built like the little monster donuts, and he's like, "Oh no, that's not good at all. Oh no." Yeah.
Yeah. And not just that. Like did you know that if you killed a man in winter, you'd see steam rising from his body? The locals believe that it was your soul ascending to the afterlife. I mean, just
that's pretty dark, man.
That was for that movie. And the car hood scenes too. I love the car hood scenes. You know, the good and the bad. I think that they were, you know, they were good. And the opening monologue too. The opening monologue was fantastic in the sense that it was the first time something like that was done. You know, the opening monologues in movies like that usually done over exposition and, you know, voiceover, and people aren't aware. And I think Mike Myers, I think one of the things that a lot of people loved about it too is that you knew it was a movie. They know it was a movie, but hey, let's play it up.
They broke the fourth wall, and that's uncommon. Like you don't see that in film a lot. You'll see that in plays,
yeah, definitely,
and theater, but you don't really see it in the film world.
In the second Wayne's World, they did have some similar. They did have some good scenes in the second Wayne's World. I'm not going to keep clowning on it because it was a good movie, and it didn't have as many moments and scenes and quotes. But I love the Jurassic Park parody.
Yeah,
the Adlai Stevenson Memorial Park. It's fantastic. The weird naked Indian scenes. How
I mean, I don't know.
Miss?
I mean, when I first saw it, I thought that they were gonna like tie it into something, but it literally was just a it was just a vessel to sort of move the plot forward. It didn't had no comedic substance.
It was just a crack for the sake of a crack.
Yeah, it was just kind of there.
The wedding scene, and I'm not gonna give. I don't know which movie it was parodying, and I should know what movie it is, but I think that was a good parody too. The roadie training school, the obstacle course with Chris Farley.
Yeah,
Chris Farley was a comic genius.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. And just think how different the Shrek series would have been if it was Farley rather than Mike Myers, because he'd actually recorded 80% of the Shrek dialogue at that point. That's why Shrek looks like Chris Farley.
Oh wow.
And Kevin Pollak with the eye scene.
Yeah.
That had me in stitches.
Yeah, I laughed pretty hard at that one.
Especially when they had to cross the T's and dot the
lowercase J's.
Exactly. That's what you had to do. The soundtrack to both movies, we mentioned it was a lot of what we call now classic rock, I guess you could say. You know, you had Queen, you had Alice Cooper, you had, you know, and then you had Dreamweaver.
Dreamweaver. That's actually was a pretty good song for like when he was staring at Cassandra.
Yes, definitely. It
worked.
It fit.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the things about the first Wayne's movie. Everything, it was like a jigsaw puzzle where everything fit. It was definitely. In the second movie, the soundtrack was similar in the sense that it had the same style of music used.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it was, but they had one where T. Carrere's band was doing a Hendrix cover.
Yes,
and I thought that was pretty fantastic.
Crucial Tone.
Yeah, that was it was in a higher key, obviously, because you know T. Carrere's not a tenor. So
no, but she's a babe.
Yeah.
Have to get one of these one of those in every now. What do you think about how the? I know you brought this up to me the other day. What about the language that was used in the movie? I mean, there's a lot of slang that was thrown about that kind of stuck around for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's real dated, but I remember doing the knot thing to people for quite a while after that.
Oh yeah, I think everybody did the what.
And I mean, you had references to that even recently in like Borat.
Yes,
where there was a linguistics professor trying to explain to him the usage of it. This suit is not black.
Yes, this
suit is black not. Yeah.
Oh, that's another character that I need to talk about one day. The wonderful Sacha Baron Cohen.
Oh yeah.
So let's get down to brass tacks. The critics say 8 out of 10. What does Gregg say?
I'd give it a 9 or a 9.5. Personally, just because I feel like it's one of the movies that kind of it was unlike anything that anyone had seen before. I think that's one of the reasons it had so much success coming out of the gate. You had a lot of pop references, rock references that came out of it. Had a good soundtrack, good cast. It was original story. The plot made sense. It was relatable. So yeah, I mean, 8 out of 10 is good, but I'd probably get closer to a 9.
And like I said, the only reason I give it an 8 is because it kind of dated itself a little bit. It was a time capsule of even the earliest of early 90s.
Sure.
In a good way. Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way at all. But because of that, subsequent watches of it, you can kind of tell that it's kind of a dated movie. And that's one of the things. I'll be completely honest. One of the things I love about music and movies, if you can listen to it and not kind of pinpoint where it was originally done, you can, but you know what I mean. Just something that doesn't immediately stigmatize it as a 90s thing.
Yeah, and I really think the best thing that came out of it was the fact that it pretty much launched Mike Myers' career.
Oh, definitely.
And we got Austin Powers and all these other great movies, because, you know, before that he was a TV actor, and any actor will tell you that doing film and doing TV are two totally different things.
I think film is the epitome for a TV actor, simply because you do like a fifth of the work and get paid 10 times the money.
Yeah, and you know, he's not only had work as an actor, but a voiceover actor, and all these other things. So it absolutely launched his career, made him a household name overnight, basically.
He definitely has milked that Scottish accent for all it's worth, though.
Oh, it's really good though.
Shrek,
it's spot on.
I think either his mother or his father was Scottish.
Yeah, Shrek and Fat Bastard.
And my favorite Mike Myers character, Stuart Mackenzie from So I Married an Axe-Murderer. Probably the best. So that's Wayne's World 1. What about Wayne's World 2? The critics say 6 out of 10. What do you think?
You know, it was. There's a lot of things that were really good about it, but I think it collapsed under the weight of its predecessor a little bit. It didn't have as much as a developed or relatable plot as the first. But I still think there was a lot of good moments in it, a lot of funny jokes. You know, you saw the expansion of Wayne Campbell and Garth Algar.
Yep.
You saw their characters develop a little bit. You know, there's good things about it. But yeah, like I said, it wasn't anything like the first one. Definitely, it was different. It
definitely didn't live, in my opinion, it didn't live up to the hype. And the reason I would say something like 4 out of 10 is because it seemed rushed. It did. I mean, it was only 18 months between them. You also mentioned...
That's like 2 babies, though.
Exactly. I mean, I can agree with that. Trust me. Both my brother and my children.
Right.
But my brothers, I should say. And you were right. You know, the first movie seemed to have a coherent plot that everybody could relate to.
Yeah.
Following your dream, whereas the second one was literally following your dreams.
Like, yeah, kind of a... Second one was more of a fantasy, whereas the first one could happen to every man in any town USA.
And it had too many references that kind of dated the movie instantly. You had the Jurassic Park scene, which Jurassic Park wasn't even a year old at that point. You know?
Yeah, and that was just getting a boost off the laurels of an insanely successful film.
And probably one of the best films ever made.
Yeah, it's up there, definitely.
One of my personal highlights of Wayne's World 2 was definitely the character of Del Preston. I think that they should have given him his own movie. You know, I could sit and listen to him tell stories for a while because of his storytelling style. Okay, they only gave him one story to tell with, you know, Ozzy beaten to death the sweet shop and his owner with their own shoes.
I had to beat them to death with their own shoes.
Nasty business, that. But no, I thought he was good. I thought he was great. I thought that was, you know, that was one of the highlights, definitely.
I don't know. I thought it was played out after the second time. I mean, sure, it was funny, but, you know.
But that led to part of the humor behind it, though. He was so out of his head, out of his mind, that he could only remember one story.
I was about to say he should have had a lot more than that for as long as he roadied and all the people that he knew, but yeah, I don't know. It seemed kind of like a moot point to me.
I think I agree with you on the one hand. It should have been, they should have told a different story, or at least use different people in the story. Like, so, you know, he did the same thing, not just with Ozzy, but with, you know, someone else.
Or he remembers the story with, you know, I don't know, Kiss or somebody else, another rock giant.
He tells the same story, but doesn't realize that he's made the story up with a different.
Right.
So,
right.
Like, he's more an imposter than the actual Del Preston.
Right.
You know, he doesn't know what he's doing. Let's talk about the endings of Wayne's World. They did something that I loved. You had, in the main Wayne's World, you had the apocalyptic ending which I watched that the first time and I thought, hang on, they're not going to end the movie like this, are they? Surely not. You know, just everything getting burnt down, and
Yeah.
they lose the girl, and you know, they instead, I thought they should have ended it with the Scooby-Doo ending.
Yep.
For people that oh my word. The happy ending though. Do you think the ending was cliche, or do you think it had to be a cliche ending for it to work?
You know, there's a lot of debate about that. Like, you know, the whole thing about a happy ending. I mean, but at the end of the day, that's what people want.
Yeah.
They want, because they kind of look at that like their own lives. Like, they want to think that everything's going to work out and things are going to end happy. But as we all know, you know, life doesn't always have happy endings.
No.
Sometimes they end badly, but I think the biggest thing is that people get so screwed up by the picture of what they thought it was going to be in their own head.
Yeah.
I think that's what screws people up the most. So have zero expectations, just do your best. And I think that's what that personified in a lot of ways was, because if you look back at the whole movie, they were nothing but themselves the whole time. They were true to themselves 100% of the time. And I think that's, if you could take any familiar moral from that, I think that would probably be it.
Definitely. Yeah, I think I agree. I think the happy ending was what people wanted, and I think you're absolutely right. They were themselves. They tried to keep themselves going in the face of everything steamrolling. You know, everything went from they were two guys in a basement to being two guys with a TV show and a rock star girlfriend, but they were still Wayne and Garth. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't relate to Wayne's World 2, because the characters had changed ever so slightly.
Yeah.
They took a left turn when they should have just kept going straight and down the path.
Yeah.
So, and that's it, guys. I mean, Wayne's World, great movie. I think overall, great series. The movies complemented each other. They were yin to the yang, and they showed what you should do and how to make a comedy movie based off of a TV sketch show, and what you shouldn't necessarily do all the time. And
if you book them, they will come.
Exactly. If you book them, they will come. And talking of bookings, before we wrap this up, I know you have a couple of events lined up.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I mentioned this before I started. Gregg's been helping me from the start get this podcast together, and he is a member of the Holodecks, friends of the show, and we've been promoting them for the last couple of weeks, and I think you have news on a couple of events that you guys have lined up.
Yeah, we're going to be doing some private functions the next couple weeks, but we're going to be back in town October 21st, the Tiki Bar. That's on East Kings Highway in Shreveport. That is a free show.
Sweet.
Starts at 9 o'clock. That's October 21st, 9 p.m. Also, we have some big stuff coming up. Thursday, October 26th, we're going to be at the State Fair, the Louisiana State Fair in Shreveport. The following night, we'll be at El Dorado Casino. That's the 27th at Celebrity Lounge. And then the 28th, we're going to be doing our Halloween performance at Strange Brew. Strange Brew is on Wall Street, which is off of Spring Street, near Ivan's, and there's a little mini strip down there. Yeah, that's really the best way I can describe it. But we have all our dates listed on theholodex.com, so you can always go and check that out. Also, we're on Reverb Nation, Twitter, Instagram, pretty much every type of social media platform. So you can always get more information or ticket info, all that kind of thing, or just watch videos and listen to some of the stuff that we do, and just check it out.
And if you guys do want more information on the links and everything, I'm going to have them in the description of the podcast, so you can just tap them or click them from wherever you are. Gregg, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Man, thanks for having me.
Not a problem. The invitation is still open. It's going to be open for a long, long time. I know we've got a few more things coming up in the next couple of months, and I look forward to hearing from you then.
Party on.
Party on, man. So before we go into some 90s trivia, I wanted to say a sincere thank you once again to Gregory for taking the time to talk about Wayne's World with us. And in all the excitement and all the fun that we were having recording, we kind of forgot the social media question this week. So it's very, very simple. What is the song that you headbang to the most? Kind of like the Wayne's World scene when you're in the car, you're doing laundry or whatever. Which song comes on the radio or your iPod or whatever and sends you into that mode where you just bang your head? I'd love to hear what your answers are. You can reach us on our social media websites in the description below, and we'll go ahead and read out some of the best ones next week. Life is good, but after a hard day at the job, it's nice to come home and spend time on your own personal throne. And with the ability to play games on a cell phone still many, many years away, and this week's edition of Scantily Clad Babes in the Other Bathroom, now is the time to handle some business while handling your business. Introducing the Potty Putter. That's right, you can now work on your stroke with your pants around your ankles. Never again does a potty break have to be as unproductive as it seems. Featuring a miniature club, plastic ball, and green mat, you can now make time for your game without leaving the comfort of your own bathroom. The Potty Putter, on sale for 3 easy payments of $9.99. But wait! Order now, and you will get overnight delivery, meaning that you no longer have to read the bottle of shampoo on the toilet or spend your time trying to pronounce the ingredients on your tube of toothpaste. The Potty Putter. So that's almost it for this week, guys. I thought I'd do a little bit of 90s trivia for you. This week we're going from the 8th of October to the 14th of October. And we're going to start in 1991 on October 14th, where the world sadly got a little bit darker as we lost Gene Roddenberry, the creator of the Star Trek universe. It was a very, very sad day for science fiction fans all over the world. A year later, in 1992, Midway released Mortal Kombat in the arcades in America. One of the most iconic fighting games of all time, especially due to its use of blood, guts, and gore. Looking back now, it seems tame compared to some of the games out there, but, you know, it caused a big uproar upon release. A year later, the release of one of my favorite movies of all time, Demolition Man, starring Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes, and Sandra Bullock. I love that movie. That, man, I just... Lethal Cop, Buddy Car Chase, man. I love those things. Sometimes I love a good Casablanca, and sometimes I love a good let's blow the crap out of everything movie. On the 12th of October, 93, Very Necessary by Salt and Pepper was released. So, you know, there you go. On the 11th of October, 1994, Clerks, the soundtrack, was released. Now, what was significant about that is that it was, I think, the first and so far only soundtrack where the rights to all the music that was required for it cost more than the entire production of the movie. Which, you know, I think the soundtrack cost 25 grand and the movie cost like 20 grand to make, which, you know, is bizarre, but it's absolutely fantastic. It's, you know, one of the very few soundtracks that I absolutely adore with every fiber of my being. On the 14th of October, 1994, 3 really, really big movies were released. Pulp Fiction, The Shawshank Redemption, and Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is a very, very unique take on the Nightmare on Elm Street series. We're going to fast forward a couple of years to 1998, where the RIAA filed a court motion against Diamond Multimedia to block the release of the Rio PMP 300, one of the first MP3 players of its kind, calling it a piracy device. That case was thrown out of court, and now the MP3 is possibly the biggest medium of sound in the world. I mean, I work in sound, you know, I work in raw WAV files, you know, but the MP3 is the industry standard in terms of all compressed audio, and, you know, it's weird how far that has become in 19 years, you know, how that has just completely taken over. On the 11th of October 1999, the Lord of the Rings series started shooting, and I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago that, you know, the Lord of the Rings became one of the most epic movie franchises of all time, and it got started, it was right on the cusp of the new millennium, you know, and so, you know, it got its start, it's got its roots and foundations in the 90s. And that's it for your trivia this week, guys. I know normally I throw a funny in there, but there was really nothing, you know, that I could look and say, oh, ha 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 ha. So, no funny this week. Then again, some people say no funny every week because I'm not that funny. So, the social media question of this week, as I mentioned, what is your song that you headbang to aside from Bohemian Rhapsody? What is the headbanging song of your choice? Again, let us know on all of our social media websites. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr. All the links are in the podcast description. And, you know, again, guys, like us on social media. Get our name out there. I'd love to expand our audience even more. You know, we've done really, really good so far. This is our 3rd episode. We've already doubled the expectations of what I already had, and I want to keep that going, and I just want to keep it going and going and going, and I don't want to get on my knees and beg you guys to help, but if you guys like this show, please share it on social media, get your friends to listen to it. It would mean the whole world to me and everyone involved with us. So I'm going to be talking about next week's show, and it's actually going to be a multi-part episode. Ooh, yeah, we haven't done any multi-part episodes before, and I figured multi-part episodes were episodes that I could string the content out for longer than one episode. And in doing some of the research that I've done and the things I want to talk about, it looks like this is going to be our first 3-part episode. 3 is a very, very weird number, I know. But we're going to be talking about the musical scene in the 90s in Britain. And we're going to be focusing on Britpop. Britpop was the genre that got me into music in the first place. I loved the Britpop scene. I loved the musicians that were involved, even to this day. I mean, case in point, this last week, Liam Gallagher, one of the faces of Britpop, released his first solo album, and I haven't listened to it yet. I'm dying to listen to it. From what I've heard, some people think it's great, some people think it's not so great, but, there we go. But we're going to be talking about all what led up to the formation and the initial first couple of years of the scene next week. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to be looking at what I consider the 4 biggest albums of the era. I'm going to be joined by Sarah for that. Sarah's been another person who's been helping me, in fact, more ways than you know, and we'll get into that when she's on board. And then the third part is going to be the peak and decline. What happened when it got too big for its britches and suddenly collapsed everywhere. That's going to be the next 3 weeks, so I'm looking forward to doing that. That's one of the things I wanted to do when I first got this podcast down, and I hope you guys join me for the journey as we look at one of the biggest music scenes of the 90s. And that's it, guys. Thanks for listening, and I do appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to this, and I look forward to hearing from you all next week. Do, do, do.